say his name, how he grew up hearing it. It was funny. I said, so help me with your name, because I've known him since he's been here at Linfield. So he said it, he's like, well, I'll say it in English and Americans. I was like, okay. I said, well, now say it like at home. I couldn't hear a difference. So there was a difference. I just couldn't hear it. So as you are aware, these events are very casual. If you need to leave early, we certainly understand. And please, we encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation, just not wait until the end. So please help me in welcoming Mihretab.
Thank you all so much for coming. The objective today is to just give you a peek into my life, my semester at American and my semester at China as well. Gizaw is the Amharic word for travel, and I know there's been a lot of questions about that, so I just want to clear that up. It's pronounced Gizaw, and it means travel. So Michelle kind of talked about my name. So my name is actually pronounced Mihretab. I don't expect any of you to be able to say that. It's fine. Mihretab is just great, and that's what I go by. And I'm just going to start talking about my family, talk about Ethiopia a little bit, and my favorite aspects of it at least, and then we'll go on from there. So for those of you who may not know, Ethiopia is just right on the equator. Slightly above is at Addis, which is here. That's where I'm from. It sits at about 7,726 feet. So it's pretty high for people that have never been there. I've had friends come over and kind of struggle with breathing for a couple of days because it's just kind of high. But year round, we have 75 to 85 degree weather, and it doesn't change. It's coined 13 months of sunshine because it's just sunny all the time. However, when I go back in the summer for those 2 months, it's always raining. So I get rain here, rain there. You're nodding because some of you in the audience have been to Ethiopia and have experienced this. But yeah.
Oh, I have a quick question.
Cool.
And this is a sensitive question, and so I ask your permission for this. I was born in 1971, and in the 1980s, when I was very aware of news and whatnot, the famine in Ethiopia was going on. Do you know, does your family talk about that time? Can you discuss that a little bit?
So, my family mostly talks about the civil war that happened more than the famine. The famine was, yes, economically a very challenging time for the country, and it's now sort of a soundbite / flashpoint of when you think Africa, you think probably a skinny little Ethiopian kid with a fly on his eye. I hope I'm testament that we're not all hungry and Africa is not all starving. There are still economic challenges in all of Africa right now, which kind of ties in perfect to this slide. This is one of my favorite buildings in Addis, and that's for a couple of reasons. This is the African Union in Addis Ababa, and the reason that it was placed when it was founded in 2002 in Addis is because Ethiopia has never been colonized. It is one of the only countries in Africa that has never been colonized, and so it's not only something that Ethiopians take pride in, but all of Africa sort of unites under this notion that we can start anew. And I wish I had more pictures of what's inside the building. Unfortunately, you can't even find them on Google. I wasn't allowed to take them when I was in there. There's mainly paintings of artists that are reflecting like Eritrean independence. Many French independent colonies have reflected their art here because it's sort of a central place where you can come together. It's a very political place as well, but it's a place where people can come together and say, this is where we start anew. This is the new Africa.
And what's it called again?
African Union.
And so, how many countries are in Africa are involved with this?
all of them.
Oh, okay.
And another reason why it's kind of my favorite place is I was able to do a summer-long internship, which culminated by my group and I giving a presentation here in front of a lot of heads of state, so a lot of nerves, but it was something that we were working towards in the entire summer, and it went great. So a lot of special memories of this place. This is Mom and Dad. Those of you who know me know how close I am to my parents, and that's because they're remarkable people. My dad, Gizaw. Okay, let me backtrack a little bit. In Ethiopia, I'm gonna pick on my friend here, Kalkidan. If Kalkidan was my sister, her name would be Kalkidan Getu. Getu is the first name of my dad, as opposed to taking the last name, Kalkidan Gizaw. So all of my brothers and I are called Eliab Getu, Mihretab Getu, Salman Getu. When we come to the United States, we kind of need some uniformity. We kind of need to meet the requirements for documentation. So we took on Gizaw. But that's my dad's last name. So people at the embassy and people here needed to know that we were related. So we just kind of took the name. And that's common for many Ethiopian families around in the United States, in Europe, to do the same thing.
So if you have children, their last names will be Mihretab?
It depends on where I have to.
Oh.
If I have children in the United States, it's most likely that I'll probably just stick with Gizaw. And back home, when I go back home, when I introduce myself as Mihretab, my friends laugh at me because it's Mihretab. It's just these little things that, yeah. But my dad graduated a pharmacist, worked in a pharmacy, his own pharmacy for a while, but now works with Bumrungrad International Hospital in Bangkok, Thailand. Ethiopia doesn't have some high medical facilities, so for heart surgery, brain surgery, spine surgery, they need to go abroad. And abroad typically means United States and or Europe, but that's very expensive. Whereas Thailand, Bumrungrad International, at one point actually, about 5-10 years ago, our currency was stronger than the Thai currency. It blows my mind. But that gave people an opportunity to get these incredibly expensive surgeries and medical treatment that they needed in Thailand for much cheaper than they would typically do. And my dad is still engaged in that job, and in fact is sort of now expanding to India even, because he's just been so successful. My mom, 3 years ago, her name is Abaidar, started her own accounting firm. She graduated an accountant, had been working for various NGOs for a while, but is finally able to start her own accounting firm, and is now actually stepping away from that, letting other people manage that, and working on her PhD. So they both graduated top of their class, high expectations. I look up to them and I love them very much. They don't put any pressure on me. These are my brothers. Most of you have met them. In the picture in the middle, to my left is Salman. He's actually the youngest one, but is the tallest one. A lot of tension there. The one in the middle is Eliab. He's the oldest one. He's in California. My younger brother's at George Fox. Boo. I'm gonna come back and talk to them about them a lot, but I just wanted to get a sense of my family.
I have a quick question. On the lower here, where one of them is graduating, the other two you have vests on. Is that similar to the vest you have on now?
Well, okay. This vest is from the Gurage tribe. So, and both my parents are from the Gurage tribe. it's not common for that to be. This vest is from the Amara tribe, and I have friends and family that are from this tribe, but I'm not associated with it. It's a cool vest. My mom got these made for his graduation because she just wanted to send. These are, I don't know if you can tell, but these are crosses. Ethiopia is very religious. It's almost 50-50 split between the Orthodox Christians and Muslim population. Yeah.
And you talked about the Civil War a little earlier. Was the Civil War religion-based, economic-based, tribal?
It was very much ethnic-based. Ethiopia is actually acknowledged in the Quran, the Bible for the Muslims, for being the first country to accept Christianity, having had Christianity accept Muslims into their borders. So there's little to no religious tension in the country. There's a lot of ethnic tension in the country, which has been cleared up recently. Unfortunately, it's not the topic of my presentation. I can answer any questions that you have about that, but I'm not going to delve too deep into that because it'll just take forever. Speaking of religion, this is a church built in the 12th century, a while ago. But what blows my mind about this, and I'm putting this up there because this is my favorite place in Ethiopia, is that this entire thing is made out of one rock. And these people like sort of pilgrimaging to come worship. There's about 200 people here, and we actually got to visit this. It's outstanded by the beauty, the architecture, but archaeologists still today don't know how it still stands, how they made it. And inside is actually remarkable. You can't go inside. We had the privilege of being able to accompany one of the priests into there, and it's just wonderful, beautiful. This is translated into what a king was about to eat honey at a royal ceremony, and they announced that they had finished the project. When they announced it, he was about to eat honey, so they called it Lalibela. Mar Libela translated into, that's how they named it. How many of y'all have had Ethiopian food? For those of you who don't have your hands up, after this presentation is gone, we're going to go. This is injera. For those of you who don't know, it sort of has, it's national bread. We eat it with basically everything. It sort of has the consistency of a crepe. That's the closest thing I can compare it to. But it's made out of a grain known as teff. And it has, we knew this a while ago, but nutritionists are now finding out that it has tremendous nutritional value. There's a lot of Ethiopian restaurants in Portland. You should go, you should eat. Life will be changed.
Can you describe each one of the things on the plates?
Yeah. This is tips. It's a meat-based. So most of Ethiopian food is very vegetarian and vegan friendly. But I love that dish. It's known as, it's basically raw meat, but it's seasoned differently. I don't know how to season it. I wish I could cook it and bring it to you guys, but I don't know how to make Ethiopian food.
And is it beef?
It is beef, yeah. And
what is it called?
It's called kitful. Thank you. I didn't say it, did I? It's called kitful. And this is that's kind of tastes like cottage cheese, but different. This is tips again. This is doroet. This is lebileb. I can keep going. I just don't know if
Well,
you
and you can tell us
describe
what
that.
these are.
This is a chicken-based dish. This is, again, meat-based, but it's lamb, minced, seasoned. Amazing. That's, come up here. Come up here. She's gonna tell you what that is. This is her favorite dish. Gourmet. I'm gonna tell you guys. When I was young, never ate gourmet. Would not touch it. This girl loves gourmet, and she's not even Ethiopian. Blows my mind. Yeah. So various dishes. Like I said, you can take me up on that offer of taking you to Portland restaurant.
If you pay.
I'm gonna move on.
Will you pay? Will you pay?
Sure, if you come. So coffee was, for those of you who don't know, founded in Ethiopia. Found. It was first discovered in Ethiopia. We call this a jebena. It's what we use to brew the coffee. And this roasting pot is pretty important to how you prepare the coffee. You basically bring the beans, you roast them on there, and when they're ready, it's the weird part, you go around the house and have people smell it, because it smells divine. And after that, it's put in that, it waits a little bit, and then it's poured like this. And we usually have it during the afternoon and the evening, and that kind of surprises people, because like, why would you have coffee in the evening? This coffee makes me sleep. It's just the quality of it has a relaxing sense to it, and it's just amazing. But if you have too much of it, which one of my friends had in the evening, shaking, staying up the whole night, it's not good.
And is it common to have it sweetened or with milk and like we do? Or?
Some people have it with this plant, which kind of has a different taste to it. I've never done that, but it's part of the culture, so I had to put it in there. And some people have it with salt, actually, and that's just the way they do things. Have a question?
What kind of plant is that made?
It's called Einata, and I don't know the English version of that, but in Amharic it's Einata. Yes, people who have it with sugar.
But you said
Make
salt.
a latte. Those are weird people. Don't. I didn't say that. I did not say that. This is the alphabet, Amharic alphabet. There is 33 letters in the alphabet, but this row stays pretty consistent with the 33. And these letters are the roots, and the rest kind of sound out the vowels. So, to kind of give you an example, ha is the one on the very top, and then it goes hu, he, ha, he, ho. So this one is le, and it follows the same vowel intonation. Lu, li, la, le, le. So there's total 231, but if you know the 33 and know the 7, how they're pretty easy. But it intimidates people because they're all written differently, and yeah, it's go ahead.
Out of the 37, do any of them sound the same, or is it all like just being different?
Great question. Some of them do sound the same. This is hot and that's hot too. It's the same thing, but they're written for different reasons. Like this, you write king with, and these two are actually the same too. You write king with this, but you write chain with this. So negus is used to write with that. Senselet, which is chain, is used to write with this. So they represent different words, depth of words.
Now, the Horn of Africa, in which Ethiopia sits, are these common characters for the whole area, or is this unique to Ethiopia?
This is unique to one ethnic group.
Oh.
There's about 100 plus languages, dialects spoken. I'm not even part of this ethnic group. I would speak Guraginya. I don't speak Guraginya, but This is from the Amara. So the Amharic comes from Amara, and that's the ethnic group that speaks this language. Great question. Any more? So this is my high school, middle school. This is where I grew up. My home would be like 15 minutes down. This is Fountain of Knowledge School, and I kind of put this picture up there to sort of give you background on how the educational system works in Ethiopia, very briefly, and that'll sort of be a good transition into how I came to the United States. In the 8th, the 10th, and the 12th grade in Ethiopia, you're supposed to take these national exams. Big, daunting, scary national exams. The 8th grade one is just a prep, just to get you ready. The 10th grade one literally decides your life. If you fail the 10th grade exam, you either go to trade school, find a job, or unemployed. So it's a very socially daunting structure as well. 12th grade one decides where you go to college. So I took the 8th grade national exam. My older brother took the 10th grade national exam. Both did fine. And we were done. This is spring. We're going into summer. Psych. My parents sit us down in a coffee shop and say, we're planning on sending you guys to the United States without your younger brother. And you're not supposed to tell him until we decide. So this is, I'm 13. My older brother's 15. Very shocked. And the reason they don't want us to tell him is because the school here in Salem, Western Mennonite, gave us scholarships. They accepted us. They're ready for us to come. But all that doesn't matter. If the U.S. Embassy doesn't accept our visa application, we're staying. So fingers crossed, we're just gonna stay. So they tell us all this information, kind of give us time to process it, and tell us not to tell him. We told him that night. Like, yo, this is crazy. You can probably guess how that went. We got accepted. It was a very sad goodbye. But my older brother and I were the first ones to come to the United States. And this is my older brother. Right now, he is doing his master's, an MBA in Bible University. Did well for himself. But I'm gonna rewind to when we came to the United States. We landed in Seattle, drove down to Salem, it's about a 4-hour drive, and got settled in, and then family friend that recommended this whole thing just kind of said, bye. You're on your own. Right now it's not a difficult thing in my mind, but back then it was just like, this is huge. I don't know what to do. So him and I got really close because we fought so much. And yeah, it was a very difficult time of our lives. We would try to Skype our parents as much as we can, but us missing them, us missing home, us leaving our younger brother was manifested in us clashing so much. But now we're the best of friends, so it's okay.
Can you talk a little bit about what culture shock you may have gone from coming from an urban area to Western Mennonites?
I honestly don't think about that much, so it's a good question. When we were in Addis, our parents would drive us everywhere, or we'd take the taxi everywhere. It was very much a city. We grew up in a city. We came to Western Mennonite, which is in the middle of Wallace Road, Highway 99, for those of you who know. It was a shock because to get to a city, to get to a store, you had to drive 15 minutes, and we'd go by bus, and it was this whole thing. So our lifestyle changed. But there's a lot of perks to that because we grew closer to some of the international students that were at that dorm, and we got to know each other more. I'm gonna be honest with you, there were times it was boring. Middle of nowhere, we're high schoolers, we need to run around. The gym can only do so much. Basketball can only play basketball for so long. But we adjusted well, I think. And so the whole motivation, I left out a key important part. The whole motivation for my family friend to recommend this to my parents to sit us down and send them to the United States now is because they always wanted us to go abroad for university. But the currency exchange at that time was 1 to 20. So add that to tuition. If we didn't have any scholarship, it's not possible for us to be in college. So he realized this with some forethought. He said, send them to the United States. Let them get used to the culture. Let them get used to how they do school here. Then that'll make them more likely to get scholarships. That's exactly what happened. So, thank you, family friend. His name is Sisu. I hate to be impersonal, but it was just nothing to you guys. This is my younger brother. He's at George Fox. We already booed. And he's doing psychology and political science right now. Kind of doesn't know what to do. I'm telling him to do both, or do neither. I'm not pressuring him at all. I don't mean to come off that way. But what's most interesting about him is he was left at home for those 2 years. When he came, no fighting. Like, I sort of realized what that was doing to our relationship between my older brother and I. So I made it a point to, like, at least reduce our conflict. I can't say no fighting because we definitely fought. But he, in a lot of ways, is following in my footsteps, but taking those steps way better than I had. For example, when he came, he hated working out. He's like, I don't get the point. Now he's huge. I don't know. He's bigger than me. He shows me workout regimens. He's like, come, let's go work out. I'm like, no. Singing, choir. I was in choir in high school. I loved it. He was like, what's the point? But now he's in choir in George Fox. And like, I love singing with him. So, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about him for now.
Oh God.
She went to a rival high school, that's why but she's not my best friend, isn't that? Well, my parents told us that they were gonna send us to the States. They told us to look up the school because this is where we're going. And this picture is not flattering, but this picture is so ingrained in my memory because that's the first thing I looked up and I saw it and I was like, what? Because we lived a good life in Ethiopia. And for better opportunities, we went to the States. But it was a huge sacrifice. It was a huge sacrifice, and this next slide kind of, this is that summer after the whole year. We spent a year in the States, and then my parents were able to come. You can't actually see it, but my brother has a cast on. He had many sport-related injuries in the first year. These are the kids that my parents sent to the United States. But to them, it felt like these. So it was with huge sacrifice that they did that, and I wasn't really mature enough to know or acknowledge that back then, but I commend my mother especially, and my dad as well, because he can get emotional.
What do you and your family do to make sure you are able to stay close? Because that's a huge distance. Different lives are occurring. What do you guys do to make it special to keep the relationship?
So that's actually the latter part of my presentation.
Okay.
But I'll kind of, it's a great question, so I'm just gonna answer it. The summers that we get to have together. So if we don't go back home, they come to the States. And when they come to the States, we travel. We don't stay in one place because Gizaw, traveling is the title of my presentation, really brings people together. And more, if you do it personally, if you do it by yourself, you get to know a lot about yourself, and you get time to reflect and grow in that way. But if you do it with people, it's just you create a special bond, regardless of whether you're family, regardless of if you gave birth to these people. The way the way you connect when you travel, when you experience these new things together, is remarkable. So we travel together. This is the short answer. And this is actually one of the places where we travel together. And I put this up here because I'll never forget what my dad said to me when we visited Google HQ. Have any of you seen the movie The Interns?
Yes.
Okay. So it's exactly like that. Nothing is different. It just blows my mind. And we walked out, and I think I was going into my first year at Linfield when we did this. My dad said, you know, I know you have the potential to come here, to work here. But if it doesn't make you happy, if you're not doing something that doesn't make you happy, I don't want you to do it. And that's very unlike Ethiopian parents. Because if you're not a doctor, if you're not an engineer and or a lawyer, you're basically wasting your life. And I'm an international relations major, so I'm wasting my life. Understand? And I'm reminded of this by many of my parents' friends, my relatives. They're saying, well, you're in the United States. This is an opportunity that a lot of people don't get. Why are you studying IR? So I'm minoring in business and economics.
What do you think makes your parents so progressive?
I don't actually know. And this is a very ambitious thing to admit. 2 weeks ago, I was talking to my brother, and this next summer I want to kind of write a book about my brother, about my parents. And I think I've always had that ambition, just because of the way they've parented us for all these years. But I think my brother's cooperation will be instrumental in that, them responding to these questions. What makes you so progressive? Why aren't you hard on me? Why don't you want me to be a lawyer, etc.? Why did you say this when we left Google? And I think it's important. So, I don't know, but when my book comes out, I'll... This is the Redwood Forests, California. My dad's favorite place that we went together. This is Crater Lake. Well, no, we should all go if you haven't. This is my mom's favorite place that we've traveled to together.
I can't tell you how proud that makes us Oregonians.
It's beautiful. So this is the third picture with me and crazy hair in the corners. And it was very, this next part, I had trouble including in my presentation. I wrestled with it for a long time. But I feel like it was important. The reason I don't have this hair anymore is because my parents, this is the only thing they might have coerced me about. And that's too strong of a word for them even. My mom braided my hair. And so they're fine with it. Some friends here were talking to them, and they said, you know, Mihretab is black. So before I title my presentation Gizaw, I wanted to title it Native, Black, Foreign, because that sort of kind of represents where I am. When I'm in Ethiopia, I'm a native. When I'm here, I'm black. When I'm in China, I'm a foreigner. So, it's a cute little title. But I titled it Gizaw, and I wasn't going to include this in my presentation. But I'm constantly reminded of this. And one of the biggest times that I was reminded of this was yesterday. Jamal Robertson was a 26-year-old security guard. And he was working the night shift. Some guy, drunk or not, I'm not sure, gets ejected from the bar that he's working at. The guy retaliates and starts shooting at the people in line going into the bar. So Jamal Robertson, the security guard, disarms him and detains him. And when the cops show up, they shot him. So I'm constantly reminded of this. And I felt as if it wasn't fair for me to forget this part or not acknowledge this, because it is part of my identity. You know, we live in a time where we hear names, Flávio Castillo, Trayvon Martin, like, and we're desensitized to them. But this froze me. This froze me because I cut my hair. I try to be as least threatening as I can. But regardless of if I cut my hair or what I do, if I'm a security guard helping people, this still might be part of my faith. And President Davis asked me this question when we first met. He said, do you experience any profiling in Oregon? And the genuine answer is no. No. There was one incident, and I don't even, for 6 years, I count my blessings. For the last 6 years in Oregon, I've never been profiled. And that's maybe why I try to forget about this. But everywhere I go, this is part of my identity. This is something that I struggle with. That could be my name up there. So I ask that we take a moment of silence just to acknowledge his life. And I'll move on. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about my semester at American University. The way I found out about this program, very weird, very random. I was working in the political science department, and I walk in, and Annika, who's not here today, walks out yelling. She's like, "Yes, I got accepted to the program!" I was like, "Congratulations!" And she leaves. And my coworker says, "Oh, go talk to one of the professors. We need to put that on social media." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go talk to one of the professors. What's going down?" And she's like, "Oh, you should apply to this program." I was like, "What is this program?" And the program is basically, I know you have some questions about it. Linfield has a relationship with American University, and each semester has the opportunity to send 2 students to American University to intern, take classes at American, and just be in DC. Being in DC, who's been to DC? Amazing, right? Mm-hmm. Great. So I had the opportunity, the privilege to take part in this program, and I interned at the Truman National Security Project. This is a nonprofit that works on tying national security issues with foreign policy issues. So, perfect spot for me. Right on I Street, so it was dream internship. Don't get me wrong. But the work that I did for them was not what I had imagined. I collected data for the creation of the website, and the website is supposed to be tracking how authoritarian a country is. not my area of expertise, but the experience was wonderful. The memo writing skills that I got from it, the being in the city, and the other opportunities that I had was to go to the IMF World Bank summit, which coincidentally took place when I was there. This is a picture taken at the World Bank. This is where many heads of states from around the world and IMF World Bank leaders come together and for a week brief each other on what's been going on, what are new initiatives that we're taking on, et cetera, et cetera. And for like us, these students, this is like the peak of where to be. So it was just like, oh my God, this is awesome. And that was all possible through American. I actually had to get time off my internship, which my supervisor was so great about. They were completely fine with to go and attend these meetings. And it was a wonderful experience.
I can think that Linfield and American University, just geography, location, and opportunities are so very different. How was it coming back to Linfield? Do you wish you would have gone to school on the East Coast? What do you see are advantages of being there, or being Washington D.C., or being here at Linfield?
Good question. So even when I did this program, we were part of what was called the School of Professional and Extended Studies. So in a lot of ways, it was kind of being at Linfield, but at American. And for undergraduate, 100% would pick Linfield a million times over, because there is not as much personalized attention given to my success if I was at American University. And I know this because I made a lot of friends at American. There's a lot of Ethiopians at American University, and I was able to ask them, like, how was the classes, how are this, how is that? And nothing compared to what you experience here. They will also be great people and have great careers in the future, but I feel that all of you are, except for my friends, invested in my success. Trying to tear me down. I'm joking. And I didn't see that much enthusiasm from their professors at American. But it's a great institution, don't get me wrong. Love the place. This is just some of the things that we got to do. The program, there's journalism, law, foreign policy, international business. And I actually didn't even do the foreign policy class. I took the business and economics classes. And that's why we got to go to places like Volkswagen and all these headquarters. It was very much experiential learning in the way that the professors took us to these places and had us hear from these people as opposed to just lecturing us. Because what's the point of being at such a central location and not going to hear from these people? This is a picture taken at the White House, me and some program friends, and that's the picture I took. And I think from this point on will be pictures that I took on my phone, so they'll have captions, and just warning you. Oh, okay. Are we American University covered well? Okay. This is the view that I had going to class every day in China. I passed this lake, and this actually was frozen, so we'd sometimes walk on the lake. There were some people ice skating on the lake. I was not brave enough to do that. But Peking University is one of the study abroad destinations. You have to take Chinese for a year in order to go there. But I say this with hesitation. It's the Harvard of China. It's the most renowned university, and I found out, actually, I was told here that it was the Harvard of China. I thought it was a pitch, so I was like, okay, I'll go anyway. But this is the largest library in Asia, and it's on the campus. And the way I found this out was a lot of people would come to visit this campus. And I'm like, why are all these people doing on this campus? These are not students. This is a 6-year-old and a 68-year-old. Like, why are they here? And it's to visit the beautiful campus that Peking has and this massive library. So it's a great place to get Chinese education, and yeah.
And you just talked a little bit about how American is different from Linfield. How was the education different here? How classes were taught? Was there any difference?
Yeah. So there's 2 programs. One is the immersion program. One is the non-immersion program. I went through the non-immersion program, and I was actually able to intern in China as well. But class sizes were much smaller than Linfield. I know that's hard to imagine, but I had a one-on-one, coincidentally, and that's what this slide is about. There was 3 people signed up for my Chinese class. One of them dropped it. One of them was too fluent, so they bumped her up to another class. So it was me and a Chinese teacher, and for some it's really intimidating, like, because she's literally sitting right in front of me. But I loved it. My Chinese got so much better, and that's where I interned. THGate, sort of like Amazon, ironically targets the American consumer base, and me and my fellow intern, that our job was basically tailoring their advertisements, the social media, to the American consumer base, because they had some funky words here and there, and they were posting an Instagram post, and we were able to help them with that, so it was good. Okay, so if you can't read that, it says, just got hit by a scooter carrying 3 people, and the scooter's probably like this big. And that was like when I felt that I belong in Beijing now, because that's the mark.
It happens in Portland now.
Oh my gosh.
That's true. The public transportation is very easy, very seamless, and they have Uber and taxis as well. But since public transportation is so easy, everyone gets on it, and some of the roads tend to be a little clunky, and that's how that happened. I was overwhelmed by how many people play basketball. It's more than here. The NBA has more fans in China than they do in the United States. That's a numbers thing too, but come on, that's still crazy. Like, and I call this the beautiful, along with everybody else that loves soccer, call this the beautiful game, because I made my best friend in China playing this game. I was playing soccer, and he kind of was obviously able to tell that I was not from there, so he kind of came up to introduce himself. He went to UCLA and was working on a master's, taking a gap year before taking a master's, so we connected through that. This is the most important thing, I was not going to be able to go to the Great Wall because there was a schedule conflict, and the program was going and I couldn't make it. He took me. Isn't that amazing? Gonna show you a lot of pictures of food because wow, the food is great there. It's my favorite restaurant. It was at the internship building. Let's go a few floors down and feast like crazy people.
Were there any similarities between the food you ate in Beijing and food at home in Ethiopia? Any similarities, or was it only different?
There were some similarities.
Like what?
They used some spices that we did, which kind of blew my mind. I'm gonna skip a few slides. Okay, did not include that there. In Tibet, they had this thing, what Ethiopians call beso. Prepared the exact same way. And I couldn't believe it. That was on my social media for like a long time because I'm in Tibet and I'm finding the same. So stuff like that kind of happened, but not too much. WeChat is pretty important, and I'm gonna give you the brief version of this. This is the app that's used for everything. And by everything, I mean paying for your taxi, paying for your meal, paying your rent, getting a flight ticket, texting your friends, posting on social media. This is the social media that's available. Did I miss anything? And they use WeChat for everything, which I honestly thought was the most convenient thing. I loved it, having everything in one place, but various people have various opinions about that. I'm not gonna say anything about it. Through WeChat, I was able to find this trip, the trip that took me here. This is in Beijing, but our program did so many site visits, but we didn't hit them all. We went to the Forbidden City with our school, but that's one of the cool places that I was able to go by myself. Actually, get introduced to my friend from Yemen, and we hit it off. I don't know why. We had a bunch of things in common. Ironically enough, we bonded over our love for Japanese food in China. That happens.
And I have a question about your friend from Yemen. So Ethiopia went through a civil war, and there's a war going on in Yemen right now. How did he end up in China? Is he back home, or is his family okay? Are you able to keep in contact with him?
Yeah, there's no positive answer. He is in China because of the war in Yemen. His family is fleeing. His uncle is a pretty high-level Yemeni official, and that's the reason he was able to flee to China. But others have not. He had in terms of relationship with Ethiopia, he had great things to say about it. His uncle had been there many times. He loves it. Yeah, but unfortunately, reality. It stands for Nanjing. This is the first flight I took by myself in China. I said I need to go somewhere, and Nanjing had pretty historical significance. I met a friend there, so the program didn't just let me loose and survive by yourself. They were very much taking caution as to my well-being. But this is pretty important to me because when I landed, I got in a taxi, had no one with me, and for an hour I had a conversation in Chinese with this random taxi driver. And that's sort of the moment where I realized, yo, this is why I came here. This was worth it. Yeah. I played a game with the same friend. We had to find, so there's a social media platform known as Snapchat, and they have geo-filters, and we challenged ourselves to find each geo-filter, and we were able to find 2 of them. That was a fun game. You don't know how personal this is. I think I had this every morning, and it was really a sad goodbye. I can't explain it to you. You just have to have it to know, really. Terracotta Warriors, more realistic and mind-blowing in person than you can imagine. It's amazing how much detail goes into making one of these. And this is Tibet. I already kind of talked about Tibet, one of the most beautiful places. Weirdly enough, very similar to Montana. Beautiful. That's kind of the vibe I got. And these are the other places thing I posted before I left China. So, if Michelle has any questions, and if all of you have any more questions, I'll feel free to take them. But thank you so much for coming. And
We certainly understand it's late and we want to respect your time, but he has a few minutes for questions, so please.
You talked about your brothers and your dad, and I'm dying to know more about your mom.
I'm actually the closest to my mom, so that's. My mom is an amazing human being. I call her every day, and we talk about literally anything. And I told you about her educational background. She actually, after giving birth to my younger brother, went to Thailand to do her master's. So again, sacrifices for education, a lot. So my dad kind of raised us for those 2 years. But now, like I said, she has her accounting firm, and I think most amazing human being. You'll meet her very soon. So, yeah. What's up?
How long did it take to become
Fluent in.
Chinese?
Ooh, I'm not fluent in Chinese. I'm very comfortable with Chinese. Beto Reyes just released a book, and I was ahead of his book signing. Yeah, honestly, amazing. And I was at his book signing when one of his friends came up to me and he's like, I heard you went to China. And I was like, yeah. And we had a 5-10 minute conversation in Chinese. So I'm very comfortable in Chinese, but I'm not fluent by any means.
So, since you know Amharic and it's a different alphabet, and in Chinese they have a different, do you feel like that was actually a plus to already have known Amharic, or were there times when you were confused with the characters of Chinese and the letters in Amharic?
No. There was, in my Chinese class here, we had a Spanish TA, and I would speak to her in Spanish, and that would be confusing. Because Spanish, in fact, I lost some of my Spanish because I progressed in Chinese. But none of the Amharic helped with memorization. Chinese has 4 tones, and one tone and another could mean I love you and the opposite. So that sort of helped with that, but never completed.
So the title of your presentation
Yes.
is in there. So you talked about some of the traveling that you've done since you've come to the United States. Did your family do much traveling before you turned 13?
Yes, actually. I mentioned that my mom went to Thailand, so my dad first went to visit her, just how's school going, etc. And then we all went after she finished her master's program to just kind of visit. And 2 years after that, we went to Europe because my dad had some friends in Europe that just wanted to show him around and stuff. And they were denied entry to the United States, so we had to go to Plan B was Europe. But now they came. They've been to the United States. They love the United States, so it's no problem.
So you talked about Jamal, right?
Jamel?
Sorry, that.
Yes, no worries.
So the atmosphere of the fact that being African American could be hard here. How was it in China?
I want you all to understand me. In Oregon, I have not experienced that. You would expect for me to, but I have not. Other places in the United States, 100%, I have experienced that. And in China, it was more, I was an African, a foreigner, not necessarily looking down on me. Just more, you stick out. And people would come up to me and take selfies, take a picture of touch my hair. And I kind of just embraced it. There was no point of fighting off 10 people with cameras. It's just not gonna work. So just kind of let it happen. Thank you.
travel influenced your career direction? I have to ask that.
Career development. A lot. Ironically, my experience in DC showed me that I am not quite ready to full throttle go into foreign policy or politics, which is great because some of my older peers that did the program as juniors and seniors didn't have an option but to go more into it. I had sort of an option to diversify, and Linfield can help you do that. And I, as you know, I'm exploring different internship opportunities completely unrelated to my major because I have that option of just finding out what I'm passionate about. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.